Alex's picture, but I don't see Alex.
All right, we are live, gentlemen. How about
Hey.
that? This technology is incredible. So I don't know if you guys saw this, but so we're celebrating Final Cut Pro's 7th birthday today, and they gave us a present. They updated Final Cut Pro.
What?
I was just seeing that.
10.4.3. 10.4.3.
I just got a notification for that right as you hit live.
Oh my goodness! Yeah,
it's only some
Support
bug fixes
from
the Inspire. Oh, render files from a compound clip.
Yeah, it's a total bug fix update.
Right.
It only was 3 on the main support notes from the App Store, but I bet there's more.
Question, guys. Who's using Panasonic P2 video files?
I was
broadcasters?
about 5 years ago.
You know, they
still
7
years
do.
ago.
They still support the P2 like with their AVC Ultra or whatever formats. So it's. I don't use P2 cards though.
Yeah, I didn't realize that there were cameras that still supported P2, at least that were being sold in stores.
Well, you're just not a broadcaster.
I just need to go to eBay.
Remember when that Panasonic P2 camera first came out, how incredible it was? It was shooting 720p.
Oh my gosh. Oh, and then you got the P2 camera that was shooting 1440 by 1080, anamorphic HD.
Yeah, exactly. Alex, we can't hear you if you are talking to us.
Yeah,
we can see you, but
there he is.
We can hear him now.
We
can hear you.
You can hear me, but you can't see me, right? Sorry about this.
We can see your icon.
I think there's some other plugin I need to do, but I don't know what it is. Anyway, talk without me. I'll do what I can. Sorry about that.
No problem whatsoever. So, so today is the 7th anniversary of the birthday of Final Cut Pro. Do you guys remember where you were when Final Cut Pro 10.0 hit the stands?
I was at home. I think I posted this on Facebook already, but I was at home. I just came home with a brand new 15-inch MacBook Pro, coincidentally. It was the first one with Thunderbolt. And hey, look, there's my kid. She's,
wow.
Yawning. Anyway, and she wasn't born yet, obviously. And I set up the MacBook Pro, and then I saw in the App Store that you could download Final Cut Pro 10 on the day.
And you had 7 before that, Final Cut Pro 7?
Yeah, but since it was a brand new MacBook Pro, this little thought crossed my mind of maybe I don't have to install Final Cut Studio. What if I can just use Final Cut 10 and have this MacBook Pro be clean? And that lasted like a few seconds after I installed it and tried to open a 7 project and realized I couldn't. So that was my day one of Final Cut Pro 10.
It's Alex's older brother.
Alex's older brother?
His icon looks a little younger. So like mine does too.
My hair's going gray. I like it. It's cool. Makes me look almost distinguished. Little flecks of gray and aging terribly. That picture's only a couple years old, but anyway.
It's only how many years old? Did you say 12 years old?
It's just a couple years old. The one with the bearded pig icon for my Twitter account. But I do one of my other accounts has got a very old picture from 10 years ago. Hello. Sorry, not very interesting in terms of the history of Final Cut Pro, but there you go. Hello.
Yeah, so we were just talking, Alex, that we had we're celebrating Final Cut Pro's birthday today, but Final Cut Pro gave us a little present. 10.4.3 just came out.
Yes. Tony, I haven't managed to. I've decided not to download it yet because I'm just in the middle of something in the next few hours, including this. I think I don't want to waste bandwidth on downloading a new version of Final Cut when I could be on air with you guys.
Absolutely. So are you in London proper, Alex?
Yes, I am. This is where I'm based, so that's where I am. I guess the camera's in a slightly different place from normal, but I'm just in the same room that I usually work at, my office, which is bedroom office, not my own. Yeah.
Well, there we go.
we were talking. Do you remember where you were when Final Cut Pro 10.0 was released? Did you download it right away?
I don't know. My record in my app store says that I downloaded Motion first because at the time I was living in Motion much more. So I think for the first day, it was Motion first, and then Final Cut. I don't know. It's because I wanted to see how many of what I could do about the fact that all the plugins I'd made for Final Cut Pro Classic were not working anymore. So I wanted to get on and learn it pretty quick.
Right. I think you're the only person I've ever heard say that. They had downloaded Motion first.
Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of thought of Motion, and then I think maybe the day later, on the 22nd, did I buy the other apps or something like that because I wanted to, get into Motion. And then the first few plugins I made for free were to shut people up in arguments about how Final Cut Pro 10.0 was no good. So I made some plugins like sound only transition was my first one, I think, in order to say, look, just try it. Just try it. Here's a plugin. Be quiet.
Yes, that was good. That was a good one to have. Absolutely. Yeah, I downloaded it when it first came out and started using it, but just on small projects. Obviously, I couldn't do multicam and a bunch of other stuff. So I had 7 there going strong for about a year. But I was working down in DC that day. So we didn't know the exact date. They didn't pre-announce the date it was going to be released. They just said, I thought they said it was in June, something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember. But yeah, no, I was kind of just thinking I better get into Motion quick because I wanted to make sure I could make some plugins pretty fast. To suddenly, and then I don't know at what point I realized that Final Cut Pro 7 wasn't available anymore, and it was no longer, it wasn't being supported as far as we could tell. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some comments from Randy about what happened there. Is that, did they make him into the final edit, Brad, for your documentary? About how
all he says is that that they dropped support for 7 when 10 came out, and Steve Jobs said that was a mistake. I have to go grab something, so I will be right back. You gentlemen continue.
Alrighty.
Getting a call.
Yes. So that the Steve Jobs comment was interesting. From what Randy said, Jobs said that was a mistake, and Jobs is the one that wanted Final Cut Pro 7 to be put back for sale.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, when I interviewed him at the second Creative Summit, or the first one, I can't remember, he said that Steve called him up when Randy was in London, recording the trailer music using the London Symphony Orchestra at Air Studios in London, which is about a 15-minute walk from where I live.
Wow.
And then Steve says to Randy, "What's this all I hear about Final Cut being actually absolutely terrible? The launch app being absolutely terrible. What should we do about it?" And then Randy said, "Well, get Final Cut back on the shelves," and which is what Randy actually wanted. And that was the last conversation Randy had with Steve.
Oh wow! I actually was working in an Apple store when Final Cut 10.0 was announced and released. And I have to be honest, I don't remember how long Final Cut 7 was on the shelves before we got rid of it. But I do remember that for a while I continued to teach Final Cut 7, and then over about a year's time, people stopped coming in for lessons on Final Cut 7 altogether and only came in for lessons about Final Cut 10, which was an interesting transition. And it was mostly not filmmakers, but I also was working in a flyover state in the middle of the United States at the time, and as some would call it. I was working in Oklahoma, and there's not a huge film scene there, but I had like a guy who ran an a cappella group that would cut all sorts of videos for his a cappella group in Final Cut 10. And before Final Cut 10 had separate libraries that could be managed at the file system level, he was requesting that because he was so used to having it in Aperture. I don't know if you guys remember that application, but
yeah, I do.
So he had been coming in and learning Aperture for a long time, and was like, well, I just want to have separate libraries so that I can, put in footage related to just specific things in certain places and be able to organize at that level, as opposed to having to, create all these sparse disk images and all of that sort of a thing to separate his footage, which I thought was, genius. And we actually used the feedback form that nobody seems to ever want to use. People just want to rant about a thing. They don't want to ever actually communicate what they want to the people that matter.
Oh yeah, well, the internet's full of complainers. I mean, people have a tendency to complain more than they will something positive happens. But I've sent a few requests, and I've also sent them into Logic, and I've been working with Logic team a little bit back and forth on some issues. So they do work. We absolutely know they work, and the poor person that keeps having to read those over and over again. I know Alex hasn't sent any. Have you, Alex?
Well, no. I mean, I used to tweet out every time I did any use the feedback form, and every time I use the feedback form, I showed what I requested in an image of my tweet, and also the link to the feedback form, encouraging other people to do it. Now, the important thing with the feedback form is the fact that even if other people requested things, I still think it's worth you filling them in, because what Apple, I think, thrive on are stories about how it's not great at the moment, and a story of how great it would be if things were different. And so the advantage is that 25 people could ask for the same thing that Final Cut does. But if they have 25 different stories giving reasons why that is, or the way it is now in different ways and the way it could be, then Apple really like that a lot more than just saying, I want this keyboard shortcut or that thing. They want the story of how their life would be improved and they'll be able to do better work. And then instead of giving what people ask for, they can actually take those stories and come up with something different that actually comes up with that better future for a majority of those people. So I think it is really worth filling in that feedback form. Or if you're a developer, go to register bugs at the bug fix bug tracker as well. That can be useful too. Slightly different thing. And use free membership of the Apple developer programs will allow you to go to the submit bugs. And then sometimes I get responses from that. Especially around 360 stuff, because I'm testing it effectively.
Right. So I remember I tweeted one time that Logic had a drop-down menu about sending the full scope of what they needed, and you tweeted back that the Final Cut Pro has it too, but you have to hold the Option key down or something.
Yeah, yeah, nobody's ever asked me to do that, but if you hold down the Option key, I think in the last menu along, it actually it saves a file with lots of useful information on. But I think that's just for about remote support. So if you've actually signed up with Apple Care for Final Cut Pro, which you can get, which includes consultation for workflow and stuff like that, then they sometimes will probably ask you to use that menu command to get to add some temporary files to your desktop, which then you can email to them. So I can't remember what it is actually, and I don't have Final Cut open at the moment. But I think it's you hold down the Option key and the last menu or whatever it is.
In the help menu, I think it is, or something.
Yeah.
And it's interesting the difference in philosophy between Logic and Final Cut. And Logic, it's just there. That's why I tweeted. I was kind of surprised. I didn't know Final Cut had it till you tweeted back.
Yeah, I mean, I think. Logic, culture of Logic, people who use Logic, is the fact that they've all grown up in a certain kind of community, online community, that is expressing itself through different applications and different communities around surrounding applications and forums and things like that. So that's just the way it's always been with these digital audio workstation apps. Whereas Final Cut Pro 10, I think they don't want people to choose that menu command by mistake and expect it to do something useful. So I think they hide it so it should be part of the kind of support process, because they know that millions of YouTubers may not get it, what it actually means, or they may try and use it and be irritated that they don't get a response. Whereas I think Logic Pro users they understand their relationship as users with the team of Logic. And of course, the team of Logic are a discrete group of people as well. And I imagine the Logic users have a much more closer relationship, and the Logic team put their head above the parapet much more than any of the other Pro apps as well. Team, it's just the way it works, I think.
Yeah, Patrick found something that Logic has. Is it in compressor, Patrick? And that they didn't port over to Final Cut Pro, which was the
side chain for the compression. Yeah. So in Final Cut 10, you can see the side chain buttons for the compressor from Logic 10. But unlike Logic 10, you don't have the ability to go to the drop down to select your source for the sidechain, which means you can't do any sort of. I mean, that's how you traditionally, before NLEs introduced automatic ducking, you would use a sidechain on your compressor to detect volume levels coming from another channel and then start to compress further the channel that you were working with. So.
Patrick, can you check your microphone in Google Hangouts? Make sure you're using the right mic.
Oh yeah, let me check that.
Patrick sounds pretty good to me. I don't know.
How do I sound now?
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, that's
Dramatically better. Yeah, that's what I thought. It's constantly checking and changing things. I know I have to do that all the time. I have 2 different audio interfaces, and plus the regular one. So it's just sounded a little bit boomy. I know that mic sounds great usually. So.
Oh well. Yeah. What were we talking about? Oh, yeah,
about
Logic.
The
sidechain compression, yeah. I'm a big fan of the sidechain compression inside of Logic. And, so whenever I saw the compressor update inside of Final Cut Pro 10, and I saw the sidechain button, I got really excited. I was like, oh my gosh, do we finally have something better than automatic ducking? Because honestly, sidechain compression is a lot more flexible, right? You've got a lot more control over how things work. It's a lot more automatic. You're not having to deal with keyframes. It's kind of like dealing with behaviors, but with a lot more granularity in terms of control. And right. And unfortunately, because we don't have a way to select roles in a drop-down menu for that plugin, you can't like select a role and say, yeah, apply compression and detect from this role, right? Which would be super, super handy. I just don't know programmatically how they would pull that off.
I don't either. So let me do this before I forget real quick. I am going to, here it is, start screen share. Look who we got.
It's Jeff.
He couldn't make it live, but he wanted to send this up.
Oh, we don't have audio, Richard.
You can't hear the audio.
I can.
No, it's not coming through to us now.
But he looks really excited.
Yeah.
Wave my finger. Talking about stuff.
Well, that's a drag. Anyway, that's Jeff Greenberg. He was just saying that he couldn't make it, and happy birthday to Final Cut Pro.
If he'd been using Apple Clips, then it would have automatically transcribed it. And then we'd know what he was saying.
Well, that's weird that it didn't play the audio. I'm kind of surprised.
Well, I know you've had that problem before though, where it hasn't piped through.
Yeah, well, I didn't. Google is very peculiar with what they allow into their Hangouts and stuff. Because I can do other Hangouts with my camera and stuff, and I can use my GH5 and GH4. But with this other hardware streamer, but it won't show up in Google for some reason. It'll show up in YouTube, but not in Google itself. Oh, that's too bad. He said he couldn't make it, but he'd take a little video, but he just said happy birthday and hi to everybody. So,
Are you using your GH5 right now?
GH4.
You're using your GH4?
Yes.
As your web camera?
Yes.
That's why we got shallow depth of field behind him.
Oh man, that explains why he's the one that looks the sharpest, and yeah.
It's a nice vignette as well, unless that's a lighting vignette.
No, there's no vignette on the. Well, it's just lighting. Yeah, it's just lighting because I have center lighting. It just fades out naturally on the sides. Yeah, I hate that 720p camera that they have built into the IMAX and stuff. It's just not good enough. So I have is a USB to HDMI converter, and just plug that into USB port, and then the camera shows up. But you got to get one. You got to make sure that it'll show up as a webcam. It doesn't know it's a GH4.
I'll have to see if we can pull that off with our Ursa Mini Pro.
Probably can.
Would it work with the Dragon 8K?
Yeah, but I think HDMI out of a red is HD, so you want to get 8K.
Well, no, you wouldn't get 8K, but you'd get a red sensor, which
Oh,
is better than the 720 camera built into the iMac. Although I think, isn't it HD or 4K now going off the newer iMacs?
It's 1080p, yeah.
1080p.
It's 1080. The iMac Pros, not the iMac. The iMac is still 720. Same with the
iMac
MacBooks.
Pro is 1080. Got it.
Yes, that's one of the distinctions they made. Plus, they give you 4 USB 3 ports. Not USB 3, but 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports rather than just 2, because I need 4. I'm going to buy just for that next time.
I mean, fair enough. Although, did you guys see Michael Kamas had his little Hackintosh versus iMac Pro video that he did for 5 things?
I haven't watched
What was the results? I didn't get all the way through it yet.
Yeah, so it looked like the results were that the the Hackintosh in some instances was faster than the other machines, the Mac Pro and the iMac Pro, but in most instances, the iMac Pro beat it. But, you know, obviously the iMac Pro is a $13,000 machine, whereas he was working off of like a $2,500 machine. But to his point, if you're going to be doing video reliably on a regular basis, like you need something that comes with support and is tested and known to work on a regular basis, because you're not going to have time while you're in the midst of doing a lot of edits to, to troubleshoot whatever it is going on with this computer that you've made out of, hacked together pieces. So
yeah, my days of hacking together computers pretty much stopped in the 90s. It gives me the heebie-jeebies thinking about going back to that again. I'd rather pay the Apple Premium for the most part. I mean, I just, I was taking the AAA certification for computer repair, and I got all the way to the exam, and I just got so depressed that I just didn't do it. This is back in the 90s, though. It wasn't recent.
I remember back in 1988, I had to fix Macintosh SEs that I had at my business. Neil Yard Desktop Publishing Studio was the first DTP place in central London 30 years ago. And in order to change the fuse in the power supply, you have to take the whole Mac SE apart, including the analog board, the logic board, everything all in the bits, in order to change a 10-cent part in the power supply that would blow every few months. So, yeah, I didn't enjoy that. And it's the fear of death keeps you frosty, though. That's the thing about these analog boards on those old computers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Quite a punch, especially in the UK when we have 240 volts and a few more amps, because we need to boil water for our tea.
Absolutely. When I came back from England, one of the last times, I got an electric tea kettle. I never thought about getting an electrical, and I had one just over the burner. But I got an electric tea kettle, been using them ever since for my coffee. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's a requirement. I never did a formal training of fixing Macs. It's just that back in '88, there weren't many corner stores which would fix your Macs, certainly.
So we got a comment from Gabriel Spalding. He said the FaceTime camera on the iMac Pro is amazing, and he also says, "Too bad I have to return that machine." He had problems with that in one of the iMac Pros. And then Isaac Terraniz says, "What's up, FCPX crew? This is like Creative Summit 3.5." I met Isaac there last year. We had lunch. We had a group of us went to lunch.
Where'd you go to lunch?
I went right across the street at some hamburger place.
Oh, yeah?
Did you see it? Did you go there?
Look, man, the only place that's worth going to when you're in Cupertino is Armadillo Willie's.
No, this is the theater. We were at the theater. Sorry.
Oh, this was at the theater the first day. Okay, so you were over at that AMC at the abandoned mall.
Weird. It was completely abandoned except for that theater, and that might have been the only. Was something else playing later that day? Maybe. Yeah.
Did you go to that? It's like a beer garden kind of a thing. That's kiddie from the AMC.
Yeah, it's like Caddy Corner.
Yeah, and they've got like a garden up the wall, right?
Something. It was weird. I just wanted the hamburger, so I went over there.
Yeah, they've got good mustard and good beer.
Yeah,
and good burgers. So I mean, that's the right place to go.
So speaking of the summit, they probably going to be the first week of November this year instead of the last week of October, the way it's looking.
Thank God. My wife has gotten tired of me not being at all of our our friends' Halloween parties. So for the last few years, she's gone to them by herself, whereas we'd had a tradition previous in our marriage where we would go as a couple costume, right? And that's really the important reason why it should be the first week of November and not the last week of October. Really, because maybe now we'll get Michael Yanovich will maybe finally come.
Because he was complaining about Halloween all the time.
Yeah. That's the reason he didn't come for the last 2 years. Was he likes Final Cut 10. He just loves Halloween more than he likes Final Cut 10.
But it's interesting that they announced in the news group, the Summit news group, which is for people who have been to the Summit before, that they were going to make an announcement at the end of May about when it was going to be, which shows that they're making a decision a bit earlier than they have done in the last couple of years. They usually don't. They make an announcement a little later a little later, don't they? Or is it usually around now? I can't even remember now. But it seemed to me that last year they made the announcement pretty late, which shows to some extent it's influenced by Apple's schedules.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly what's going on. I think Apple obviously dictates when we can visit, but I wonder if that means Apple has something going on with a presentation of some sort, like they had a couple years ago. I don't know.
We'll find out, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, of course, I'd like to. It would be nice if it was in at the same time as all the other big announcements, and that we were just on the side of the big announcements for the iPhone 10, the new versions of the iPhone and the iPhone 10, and new Macs and stuff like that. And we were just there that same week, because they may want to have lots of examples of the new Mac Pro and lots of Mac Pro users around to talk to, to be enthusiastic about it. So that's why, and that was my first thought when they said, "Hey, we're going to announce a little earlier."
Well, now I think the Mac Pro, though, they've specifically said they won't be launching until 2019, right?
Right.
Yeah. Or maybe some Mac hardware in order to say, look, we solved the problem about Intel being totally crap for the last 2 years, and here's some Pro users who are very enthusiastic about that, whatever solution they have. Yeah, of course. I just meant new Mac hardware and then maybe a rationalization of the Mac product line, because when I say when normal people say which Mac should I get, I just go, well, you just look at the laptop range and you can't even do it by price. There's just this weird overlapping stuff between the MacBook and MacBook One and MacBook Air, and it's just terrible, the situation with Mac hardware.
Well, especially the MacBooks, especially the MacBook Pros.
How do we advise people about what to do? It's all very well to advise friends to say who want to edit with Final Cut Pro and they're getting paid to do it. Then get a MacBook Pro. But if it's like, okay, have you got $1,000, $1,500, $2,000? What do you do then? What advice do you give people? It's totally impossible.
Right. Well, when I got the 2016 MacBook Pro when they came out with the first one with Thunderbolt 3, and it's just not as powerful as an iMac. And every time I get on the iMac, it's so much better. Besides just the big screen, it's just so much better. It's smoother. Everything runs. So I don't edit on my iBook Pro unless I really have to.
Yeah.
How about you guys?
I mean, as I'm making plugins, I don't want to have the fastest Mac, because then otherwise my plugins will be slow. So I have to make sure that I'm using an above average Mac for both commercial plugins and also custom plugins for organizations.
So do you think there's a possibility of seeing a preview of the Mac Pro at the Summit, though? We know it's not coming out till 2019.
Well, I suppose possibly. They have been giving 6-month previews, from WWDC to December in the case of, last year and the year before, and also for the actual Mac Pro, the trash can Mac Pro, that was actually, and mentioned and showed a picture of in late May, and launched in the beginning of December. So it's possible that it could be the "shut up, we're working on it" part of the presentation. But I think that it's about time that Apple, in general, sort out their relationship with their CPU and GPU. I mean, if they say, "Hey, look, we've got our own GPU that runs on Metal," all software that now goes over to Metal has got their own GPU. As I've written about before, if they do a cell-based GPU design, it would be amazing, because then you just have one. There'll be 4 units inside 1 unit in a Apple Watch, 4 in a low-end iPhone, and 8 in a high-end iPhone, and then 16 in a MacBook Pro, MacBook up to 48 in a Mac Pro. You could have the same GPU, and you just have multiple ones, and they just get better if Apple could step up their GPU stuff. And then they don't have to worry so much about the CPU. They can just sort of use the GPU skills they've used for the iPhone and make them work on the Mac.
So yeah, we're hoping for a spaceship visit to the Spaceship Campus this year. But what do you think about Final Cut Pro? I mean, they're going to update it to 10.5 and show us a preview that's coming out in 2019, or they might do 10.4.5 or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this stage maybe they don't want to be too predictable. That's the problem with
setting
a new version coming in. Yeah, because they've set a precedent that they're effectively that this summit means you've got a major version, almost major version, and something with reporting relatively often. So I don't know.
But it would be disappointing if they didn't, though, don't you think?
Yeah. No, I mean,
I know. People are
expecting
it. Yeah.
Well, that's the problem. So the trick, of course, to make it less disappointing would be to have a launch of a good update earlier. Yeah. Maybe associated with new Macs, at least a feature bump, speed bumps Macs coming in late September to make up for the fact of lack of hardware announcements so far this year for Mac. Maybe a new Mac Mini Pro or something like that would be pretty good.
It's been a long time,
yeah. So that would be based on a MacBook Pro, a headless MacBook Pro with a new form factor, and then for us who like to do a bit of co-processing and like to have multiple Macs working on the same thing, hey, maybe with a bit of Thunderbolt 3 networking between them all, showing processing, that'd be quite nice. Legos, make them all snap together like Legos would be quite good. I'm not asking for much, but something just to kind of a nice little kind of slight twist, a twist from what people are expecting might be quite good fun. Yeah, let's say Apple GPU and Apple snap together, Mac Mini Pro, which would be quite interesting for little installations and embedded systems and that kind of stuff, just to go in a slightly different direction what people are expecting.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Brad, what have you got coming up? Anything in the next week or so?
I'm gonna go down to California for some reason to hang out with Patrick. He wanted to stop by LumaForge and hang out and pester him at work.
I don't know why why I invited Brad to come hang out with me. We get to hang out so frequently over these chats that, but it is kind of nice to see somebody in person. So I think he and I are going to squeeze into this room. There's this couch that I think the two of us will sit on, and we'll watch this HDR TV and figure out how to get the Red Raven connected to the Blackmagic Ultra Studio for the sake of doing better webcam work. Now that we know you're using your GH4. So did you? Michael Horton said that LumaForge is online for supplying food for the event next Wednesday. Well, I don't know too much in the way of the details around that, but I do know that there's usually pizza after Lossy Pug, and that we usually like to go to dinner at Pizza after Lossy Pug, and you'd have to ask Sam the rest, because that's what he said. That's what he said.
Well, so yeah, I think Michael Horton said that Digital Film Tree was going to step up and provide drinks and hors d'oeuvres during the actual event, and then afterwards we'll have a party with all the nerdiest of the Final Cut people that are attending. So Patrick, you've been to these LACPUG events. They don't have any kind of hors d'oeuvres usually? So usually Jeff from Advantage Video Systems will out front sell hot dogs and brownies and chili for about $5 a pop. Okay. And I think it's a vegan chili, but it's quite delicious. And somehow I think they're vegan brownies too. I don't know how he pulls it off, but there's you would never know that it was vegan. It tastes delicious. And I don't know why he's not into culinary as opposed to video systems. Or maybe he uses his culinary skills to sell video systems.
could be any number of those things. But yeah, there's usually food, but it's for sale. It's not usually free. And then there's usually wine of the month in the lobby area downstairs, so you can grab some wine or some chips or something like that. But again, all of that's cost. So if they're providing hors d'oeuvres, then that must be something that's being provided as part of your ticket for getting into Lossy Pug.
Well, speaking of that, so tickets are normally $10, but there's a code, right, Brad?
Yeah, sorry, I've got my kid here. That she's a little needy right now, but yeah, there's if you're watching this and you're in Los Angeles and you're going to plan to come next week and you haven't bought a ticket yet, you might have to mute for a second. You know the code, Richard, right?
No, I don't have it committed to memory. I can look it up.
Oh, I know it. It is it's off track, just like the sliding glass door. Off track is the code.
Yeah,
all lowercase.
Yeah, all lowercase. Absolutely. Yeah, so that'll get you $5 off, which is the normal price they charge, right?
Right.
Normally you can register for free, but Michael said he's had a lot of up to 40% people who register and don't show up. So this time he decided to do an upfront cost of $10, but you can get $5 off right now. It only holds a couple hundred people, the place.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's smart of Michael, because there is so frequently, especially in Los Angeles, this tendency to, if something's free, you put in your reservation and then you don't show up because you don't have to, because there's, you don't have any stake in the game. But I think having the upfront cost is really smart, because normally you have to pay at the door, right? You walk in the door and hand them $5 and they hand you some raffle tickets and you hopefully win the world famous raffle. But yeah, I think Off Track getting the $5 tickets up front, really smart move on his part, and I think it's a really smart move on the part of those who are wanting to go.
Absolutely. So we got a few comments in the chat. Gabriel says, are all of you planning on going to this year's summit? I think we are, except for Brad.
Yeah, Brad? I decided this kid isn't crazy enough, so we're going to have another one. And it's a girl that's due in October. So I've already been told by my wife that I'm not allowed to attend
but it's going to be November.
Events around that.
You can go. It's going to be November.
The baby's only 1 or 2 weeks old. No.
So Edward Bruce Radcliffe says, hi guys, long-time Final Cut Pro user. Do we think we will ever see a role-based audio mixer and also finer curve controls for keyframes like that found in Motion?
That's a great question. I mean, I think the evidence that Apple cares about audio was put forth in 10.3, right? So when they completely redid their entire audio pipeline from top to tail, I think it's an indication that they care about that as a subject matter. However, they tend to, or they have been over the last few releases, been doing major things, audio, color. So who knows? They might have some other major things that they revamp before revisiting audio. But I would guess, based on what we've seen in the past, that at some point in the future, maybe it won't be a roles-based audio mixer exactly as we envision in our heads now, because Apple likes to do things new and different and exciting and provide the thing that you needed but you didn't know you needed. But my guess would be that they would massage what they've got with audio in the future, whether or not, again, roles-based mixer exactly, or something else utilizing roles and allowing us to do finer audio mixing and sound design.
Alex, what do you think about Final Cut Pro's current state of keyframing?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I've had pretty good success with my animation transitions plugin, which is all about doing animation without keyframes. I think the vast majority of actual real users of Final Cut are pretty scared off and don't like the idea of keyframing, or maybe they actually change parameters and they don't even know they're keyframing. So I'd be surprised if Apple adds more, Bezier curve editing, all that kind of stuff to keyframing. it's interesting how they haven't touched the user interface for keyframing, in 7 years now. It's essentially, there are some shortcuts obviously to change the way that they work a little bit in terms of easing in and easing out of keyframes, but they certainly haven't made it so you can have 2 keyframe graphs visible at the same time, for instance, in the UI. So I think maybe, but they may have to revisit it or have a separate, I don't know. I think that it's weird. I think with the recent updates will all be about placating pros, and I think maybe it will be a good idea. It's quite likely that a big update is maybe should be for the other 90% of, or maybe 95% of people use Final Cut, which I don't know what that would be, but it is tempting to ask for kind of pro level stuff. But it's been about the pros quite a lot recently. Yeah, and I miss them too, because I kind of came from motion graphics to editing.
Right.
So maybe instead of better keyframe editing, they may come up with different response curves, a la behaviors, so you could actually apply different response curves in different places and then drag the different them like clips, if you see them like backwards and forwards like you can do in motion, but maybe do that as a mini editor. And I'm just trying to find a more consumer-friendly way of people getting the result of keyframes without having keyframes. To make them easier to scale in order to move them all at the same time, to scale them horizontally in time, if you see what I mean, in case you want a complex animation with 7 different keyframe graphs effectively to be lined up with each other. And how do you do that without actually dragging lots of keyframes?
Right.
Not turning the app into After Effects effectively.
Right. Well, that's true. That's true. I really like Motion's keyframe editor quite a bit. Sometimes I like Final Cut Pro's keyframes. Sometimes some of the features are handy, but other features are frustrating. Like, why does it always default to that weird S curve when you do a motion instead of linear?
Yeah, I mean, I think that 4 out of the 5 times that kind of works. It's so that people can get back to doing their editing. I think their philosophy is make it so that you can animate something on and off the screen or from one place to another, and you don't really have to know about ease in and ease out. It'll just default to the thing that works most of the time. But of course, that is very frustrating if you want to have a different result in general.
Right. Exactly. So we got another comment. First off, Isaac says, "Congratulations, Brad. I think you're listening on your baby."
I'm mostly listening. Yeah. Thank
and
you.
then he says, since Richard's reading comments, does anybody know or talk to members of the Apple's Pro Workflow group? So the question I would have about that, are there any common members between the Pro Workflow group and the Final Cut Pro team? Are they completely separate?
Are we talking about that group that was created? I think they announced something in an article about the team that is working on the Mac Pro, or is helping inform the Mac Pro?
Right.
Yeah, I have no idea.
In any communication, I'm sure there's communication between the Final Cut Pro team and them, but maybe they're hardware and their other one's software, perhaps. But I don't know anybody that's talked to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that, I spotted the job advert for this in, I think it was May last year, and I did a post about the fact that there was a job ad for this. And initially they were going to set it up, interestingly enough, down in Culver City, where the Motion team is in LA. And of course, that's actually quite a good place from a post workflow position, because then you can have people come in and try experiments, actually putting post workflows from real feature films and real TV shows and stuff like that. But it looks like they moved it up to Santa Clara Valley, as they say in the job ads. But it was going to be in Culver City. I would guess that there probably would be a good idea to keep them actually separate, so that the Pro Workflow team become like a client of the Final Cut Pro team, or a video applications team, I should say, because there's going to be, it's better if there's a bit of separation and they don't. It's a bit like saying, the separation between the editor doesn't go on location or doesn't know about how hard it was to shoot the movie, because that doesn't make any difference to the footage you get. And it may be that the pro workflow team is like, say, well, I don't know how hard it is for you to do it. This is just causing a problem for me.
Right.
I suppose you're getting too close into the people who are saying, if you talk to lots of people, even from the Motion team, saying, look, we're going to have lots of problems replacing the OpenGL code that we use for all our stuff with Metal. So and if you start siding with the developer as opposed to with actual people implementing the workflow, then you don't get as good results, if you see what I mean, from your experiments.
Right. So Alex, go ahead and plug your plugins.
Oh, well, cool. Thank you very much. If you go to alex4d.com, I've got 2 plugin products. Alex4d Animation Transitions, which is for people who want to get stuff on and off the screen in an interesting way. And instead of having to add lots of keyframes and also having to if you change your mind, it's really tricky. You just drag one of these transitions on there, and then it kind of flips a graphic or a video or stuff on or off the screen and splits into 2 bits. And so instant animation of lots of different styles just by dragging and dropping, as opposed to setting keyframes precisely. And the other product is the Alex4d 360 effects. So if you want to experiment with 360-degree video, I'm going to build up a series of plugins, and even as people request them for workflows and ideas, I'm going to add them and try and keep this as a more evolving product in the coming months. And 360 video.
That's on FX Factory.
Yeah, they're both on FX Factory. So if you've got FX Factory, you can see them in the catalog. But if you go to alex4d.com, you'll see links to also my free plugins are listed there. Lots of over 50 free plugins for Final Cut Pro.
Yeah, invaluable. When Final Cut Pro 10 came out, your plugins were just invaluable, some of those plugins. So
thank you.
Do we have a 360 grow shrink yet?
No, not exactly. But of course, that would be an example of how I'll extend what I'm doing. I'll go to my classics and do 360 versions of those. Absolutely.
I mean, personally, it is my default effect inside of Final Cut is grow shrink. Use it all the time.
Thank you. Yeah, and the idea you can instantly add life to almost any shot by just dragging it on there. It's a bit like when you cook. You just go, okay, I don't know what I'm going to cook, but I'm going to chop some onions first into tiny pieces while I work out what I'm going to do. And maybe grow shrink is like chopping onions for doing the edit. You haven't started the edit yet, but you might as well drop that on there and see what it does.
Absolutely. So, Brad, you're going to be talking about, I'm going to bring this up on screen. You're going to be talking about you're going to introduce your movie next week, right? At LACPUG? You're going to actually introduce it?
I guess I will. I'm probably the most qualified person to introduce my own movie. Unless Patrick wants to do it, but I think I'd do a better job.
Ladies and gentlemen, Brad made a movie. Here it is. Would be my introduction. That's how that would go.
Hey, you stole my script.
And also,
I was going to do it third person and everything.
we could play that piece of video right now from the Hangout from YouTube, and then just put that up there. Just
perfect.
Put it up at the beginning.
That is perfect. So there it is with the 18th anniversary LACPUG, Wednesday, June 27th. I think it starts around 6 o'clock. I think Michael said to get there around 6. And you can find it at lacpug.org. It still has the F in it from the early days. That's how you get there. Tickets are $10 with a $5 off code. Off track. Tracks or tracks?
Off track, one word.
Yeah, the coupon code probably got too long, so they had to drop the S, I think. That's probably
there you go. They couldn't afford a bigger field for the coupon code. That's funny.
So Mike Horton sent me a list of some VIPs that are planning to attend. They may not all make it, but
This one.
This one? You want the pen?
Yeah,
Sorry,
the Sharpies are via Sharpie.
Yeah, it's a good idea to give your daughter a silver Sharpie. These are the same Sharpies we used to sign the posters. I don't know if Alex, did you get your poster? Did it make it to the UK?
Yes, it did. Thanks very much. I really appreciate it. No, absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Well, there's the Sharpie we used to sign it. That's my daughter's going to draw over. Okay, so the people. So we've got, I don't know how to pronounce all these names. Rami Katrib, he's the founder of Digital Film Tree. He's also, Digital Film Tree is also going to bring, I just got an email, they're going to be bringing some wine and beer and appetizers during the show. Next week. We got Lauren Carey who created Cinema Tools. We've got Dan Fort, who's an assistant editor who edited a feature film on an iMac. Larry Jordan, I think everyone knows who Larry Jordan is. Paul Ciccone, who is an Apple systems engineer, became the Final Cut Pro project manager in the early days. Andrew
Happy birthday,
Ballas. Hey, color corrector. Anyway, Shane Ross might be there. We've got Jan Kovac coming. Tim Serdu is on the original Final Cut team, and Michael Wall, who was the original Final Cut Pro team designer person. Rob Ash, who's an editor on Conan, said he might want to come.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I want to talk to him.
And I got word that Michael Cioni is also hoping to make it. So we've got,
And then we have Philip Hodgetts and Gregory Clark going to be there.
Yeah, they're there every Lossy Pug. There's
Well,
not
there's
one
still-
that
yeah. Yeah.
they'll be the ones taking your tickets.
Exactly. And Randy Ubelos. You forgot to mention Randy, did you?
well, Randy's like the guest of honor on stage. Not all of
Right.
those other people are going to be presenting or on stage, but Randy will actually, be there, and he'll talk
Patrick's gonna
about.
be there. Is Sam going to be there, Patrick?
I believe so. Yeah, I mean, not just I believe so. He's got the company credit card, so if we're paying for food for people at some point, yeah, Sam will have to be there.
And then who else from LumaForge is coming up?
Who else from LumaForge? As far as I know, it's Sam and myself, and anybody else from the company who wants to come. But I don't have firm plans from anybody else,
Okay.
from commitments. So Sam and I will definitely be there, and then we forgot the most special of guests that will be there is Brad Olson and Alan Seawright and Richard. Aren't you going to be there?
I am going to be there. I'm flying. Listen, I'm flying in from the East Coast, and I'm not going to even be in LA for 24 hours.
But you are going to stay for pizza, right?
Yes, I'll stay for pizza, and I'll just go. Then I'll go crash. And my flight the next morning is like 6 a.m.
Oh gosh.
But that's the
I don't-
only one that was direct flight there from back to where I go. So I'll deal with it
And you're flying from LAX too, right?
because there's no direct flights to what's the other one?
Burbank.
Burbank.
Burbank. I checked. There's no direct flights from the East Coast where I'm flying from. BWI direct flights there. I would have gone there instead, but so I'll
Man.
be there. I'm going to rush. I'm going to get there 11 o'clock in the morning, and if I get a chance, I'll go to the Hollywood Walk of Fame and then head over to the event. But so Brad's going to be there with posters. Brad, you can have posters.
Yeah, that's the plan. I've got a bunch of extra posters that I printed off during the Kickstarter. And sorry, but she's getting tired. I got a bunch of posters, so I'm gonna bring more of these Sharpies. And
There you go.
And then since people that are in the documentary there, I figure it might be fun. If people want some autographs, why not?
Sure, and then Steve Martin's we're gonna try to hook up with the Google Hangout so he's not going to be there directly, but he'll be able to, talk to some people. You can talk to him, and if Alex, you want to drop in on that as well, it'll be next Wednesday, probably about 5:30 to 6 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to start one, and I'll put the link out there. And also, but you'll be able to talk to Brad. He's going to hang out and talk to people. His handlers will let him do that.
I told you
presume.
you are my handler. You and Patrick are my handlers.
There you go.
So
Brad, now I forgot when we were talking about setting up plans for this, I thought I remembered you saying that you were going to provide transportation to the Pepper Mill in Vegas. Is that?
you mean like we're driving to Vegas the day later or something?
Well, I mean, every time I see you at an event, there's some sort of expectation that you're going to give everyone a ride to the Pepper Mill, or that we're all going to meet at Armadillo Willie's. I haven't seen you in any context where that wasn't the case. So I thought that we had mentioned you giving everybody a ride over to the Pepper Mill after pizza, but maybe I remembered that incorrectly.
So it's pretty far away.
Yeah, the Pepper Mill's in Vegas.
That's only a 5-hour drive, guys. Come on.
We can hang on his roof. No, Brad gives me rides when I'm in Vegas. A few of them, I've gotten a few from Brad as well. So that is true.
Yeah, LA's not quite as easy to get around as Vegas. Hopefully, you guys have hotels near Barnsdall.
Yeah, I think mine is about 1.3 miles away, so it's actually probably walking distance.
Yeah.
I'm right on Hollywood Boulevard itself. So I'm not going to even be in the room for more than 4 hours or 5 hours total.
Oh, are you not?
And well, because I'm in and out.
Talking of Las Vegas and NAB, I was sad to miss it this year, but I couldn't justify going this time. Of course, there's another bigger equivalent event in Europe, which is IBC in the middle of September.
Right.
I think now is the time. I imagine people will be making plans for that. Obviously, as Lumaforge is usually involved in that to some degree, but I imagine after the last few times of having an off-site location for Final Cut Pro stuff, maybe there could be different plans this year. Is there any idea of what might be happening, Patrick?
Well, I know that we were looking into last year having a space on the floor for Lumaforge proper, but there's not any sense of having like a Faster Together style thing on the floor of IBC, at least not from Lumaforge itself. So if there was going to be anything, it would have to be something that maybe Soho editors or Apple decided to put on themselves, as we don't currently have any plans to do a Final Cut 10 centric event at IBC. Mostly because we don't have the relationships to leverage, actually building out a space on the floor and all of that sort of a thing. Not yet, at least.
Yeah, I guess I'll have to come up with something.
There you go, Alex.
So do we think hopefully it's going to be at the Juniper, the Creative Summit's going to be at Juniper again this year, because that's a really nice place it's close to Cupertino and it has Armadillo Willie's.
It's the only thing that matters.
Yeah, those are the two important things. Absolutely. If you're a vegetarian, that's not going to help you. But
do they not have vegetarian barbecue at Armadillo Willie's?
They might.
They've got mac and cheese. That's vegetarian, not vegan, but it's vegetarian.
Well, that's true. There's a distinction.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the thing that's been very, very helpful about the Creative Summit the last few years is not just having the sessions, but also having the lobby of the hotel to be able to
Yes.
hang out in. And I think that's where when they had announced that we were going to be doing the entire thing in the movie theater, we all kind of were like, yeah, no, thanks.
Exactly. Exactly. That was not a good choice. But I think they realize that now. I think they came back. So, yeah, the main thing is in the mornings when people get up and they're kind of groggy, if they can go to the lobby and have a bagel and coffee and just hang out and talk with each other and make plans for the day, that's really, really nice. So hopefully they'll do that again this year. They did it the second year they did it there. So.
Yeah, well, let's hope that they do again. We'll see what happens. I mean, the breakfast at the hotel is really nice. The available space right outside of the conference rooms to be able to chat and to catch up and to share ideas is invaluable. It's absolutely invaluable.
Absolutely. And there's plenty of things to go around, to get around. I go across the street to the grocery store and get, a bunch of bottled waters and half and half for my coffee in the morning. Hey, look, I'm coming into LA for like one day and I'm still bringing my coffee set up.
You'll need it for that red eye.
Well, exactly. But I'll probably, because otherwise I have to maybe get inferior coffee, and the heck with that. Because I'm not packing that much, so there's plenty of room for it this time.
Oh, you think you're going to get inferior coffee in Los Angeles?
Well, where I'm staying. I'm not in Los Angeles. I'm on Hollywood Boulevard in Thai Town. Does that sound, where that is?
Are you east or west of Barnstable? Do you know?
So let me think. West.
You're
looks
west.
like headed towards Walk of Fame.
Okay. I mean, you're basically in Hollywood. I mean, there are all sorts of great little coffee shops that make good coffee, but knowing which one to go to, that area, I don't know where to tell you. I know all the great places in Burbank, but Hollywood, the only one that I know of. Do I even know of one in Hollywood that I really like? I don't know of one in Hollywood that I really like. There was one over by our old office on Santa Monica and right next to Eat This Cafe, and they had really good coffee.
So I need 2 coffees. When I get there about 11 o'clock, I'll need one, and I'll need one before the event at the about around 5 or so.
Yeah, you better bring your own coffee setup.
Exactly. And then the next morning, I'm getting up at 3 a.m.
Oh, God.
Well, because I'm getting a taxi or a shuttle about 4 a.m. to get me to the airport.
So, and that only puts you there 2 hours before your flight, which at LAX is like just on the nick of time.
Exactly. So I think if I had coffee, I have a better chance of
Richard, pizza goes till about midnight. I think you're only going to get about an hour of sleep that night.
Well, I'm not going to stay the whole time. I'll get some pizza and hang out with you guys, and I'll get an Uber back or ride back to the hotel. It's not that far away, a couple miles, looks like.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, pizza's not that far away.
About the summit, early this year, in order to kind of prompt the question in the FCP, the summit Facebook group, I asked the question of where the summit should be this year, just in case that was a good time to start thinking about it. And I just proposed the possibility of it being in Culver City or being in the Los Angeles County area, in order to kind of use the summit as a kind of process, as a place also to convert people who weren't already in the world of Final Cut. But in practice, everyone wants the special experience of being with Apple people. I mean, that would be the advantage of Culver City, is that you will be with Apple people, just different Apple people, if you see what I mean. But in practice, I think people want access to the actual, the Final Cut team as they are just near their offices and stuff like that. But I was thinking, sorry, pardon me. I was thinking one possibility would be that if the summit is happening on Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday, that some people who actually go to the summit to speak could also then go down to LA and do a kind of a separate version for chosen folk who are to give roughly the same presentation, but to people that we want to impress in the LA post scene. And that might be a good idea.
I mean, that is definitely an interesting thought. I think that there would be a place for something like that to happen, but I think it's worth noting that, Apple has multiple times done events here in Los Angeles. Like a few years ago, Mike Matzdorf put together an event with the America Cinema editors, where Apple came in and hung out with everybody while they talked about Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, and Billy Fox from Straight Out of Compton came and talked about what he thinks works in Final Cut and what he thinks needs to be improved. And there have been other similar events, like it was just last week we were at a Melrose Mac event, and Apple appeared and did a presentation, and we did some presentations. So there are plenty of things like that happen in Los Angeles, but I do see what you mean, in that it might be beneficial to have some of those people who are coming to the Creative Summit, like if they by chance got someone like Thomas Grove Carter, it would be great to have someone like him come and talk to a Hollywood audience about doing editorial inside of Final Cut Pro 10. Absolutely.
Yeah. And now that they kind of played the Thomas Grove card quite a lot in 2016, and we read him in 2017, and now he's got a nice Nike case study coming up in 2018, which is this just a new Nike advert that's just for the World Cup, the men's soccer World Cup that's happening at the moment.
Yeah.
So Brad,
maybe he'll be back.
Do you have any announcement about the availability of Off the Tracks at the Super Meets? Is that going to be?
I'm so close with getting the final clearances and stuff to release it. I'm planning on getting on at least a couple platforms to start with. But no, I mean, everything right now is, most of my energy is just getting to next week. And then after the event, I can kind of sit down and figure out, the next announcement.
So offthetracksmovie.com is where people can find out about the actual movie itself.
That's right.
But the idea is to get out to this event next week. You get to talk to Brad in person. You get to talk to all of us in person if you can make it out there. It's only a couple hundred seats in order to fill up, Michael said, 200, I think he said. So
There's 300 seats total, and he says it fits about 200 people comfortably.
Right.
So we can sell as much as we want as long as the fire marshal doesn't get after us.
Truth.
So, Patrick, anything new from LumaForge?
Anything new from us? There's a lot more in the way of content that's going to be coming out. We've only got a few more of the Faster Together presentations that are going to be going online on fastertogether.com and on our YouTube channel. But we've got a lot of other content that we're going to be creating over the next few months. So continue to keep your eyes on our website and on our YouTube channel for new content, both educational and just fun if you want to see behind the scenes on how certain things are made and how certain groups do their work. We don't have any new product announcements, but the new backend that we showed at NAB, we're getting close with. So keep your eyes on the horizon here in the next few months. We ought to be launching that, and it's looking better and better than ever. The further we get into development with it, the more and more excited I am about the fact that it's going to be hitting, not the stands, but hitting everyone's jellyfish. So,
right,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, we've got some exciting updates that are in the pipeline, but not quite ready yet, but they'll be here in the near future.
So the event next week, we have Randy Ubelos. Michael Horton's going to interview him for approximately 45 minutes. They have some very peculiar videos from the very early days of FCP at LA's FCPUG, including that one moving van that said Final Cut Pro inside or something weird. Did you see that, Brad? Michael posted a picture of it. The very first, it said the moving van, it's like a U-Haul van. It said Final Cut Pro inside. And they actually moved it, the whole system, and I guess in that van. But it's a lot of early beginning of Final Cut Pro films that he's going to show some clips, including Randy Ubelos presenting at LAFC-PUG. He said he thought it was version 3 he presented at. And then we're going to have Randy on stage for 45 minutes with Michael and hopefully a Q&A afterwards. And then Brad's coming on.
The most exciting part of the entire evening.
It's a 77-minute cut, you said, Brad, this version? The final version? Brad?
I think Brad's frozen.
Oh, is that what it is? I thought he was just staring at the screen. Well, from what I understand, yeah, it's the 75. It's the full version, 77 minutes. No more edits after this. Oh, he went out. No more edits after this. I've always teased him. I worked with Brad for about the first year on this event. I said, now you realize when you put it out, you can't edit it anymore. And he started laughing. He said, I just went out and did some shots this morning I'm going to put in there. So I've seen the whole thing multiple times. It's really, really very interesting. It's very well done, I think. There he is.
Yeah, but you haven't seen the shots that he shot this morning.
That's right. Or the shots that since 10-4-2 came out. I haven't seen those either.
Yeah. Gentlemen, I have to head out. I'll let you guys continue your conversation. But I look forward to seeing you guys next Wednesday.
Absolutely. Next Wednesday. Yeah, we're going to head out here shortly, too. Brad, we were just talking about Off the Tracks. The presentation, the version you're showing is going to be 77 minutes?
77 minutes. Yep. And I like Patrick. I probably have to go too. Sorry, I jumped away there for a second. I think Facebook froze my computer, so I had to restart.
Well, that's not unusual.
I was clicking around there, and all of a sudden everything locked up. And anyway, so
okay. Yep. I think I'm going to go too, I'm afraid. I've been called away.
Absolutely. If you get a chance, Alex, stop on. I'll put a Google chat up next Wednesday about 5:30 Eastern, 6 o'clock Eastern. Hop on and say hi to people that are there.
Like 1 a.m.
Okay,
Alex time.
I'll see. Yeah, I'll be in Rome, weirdly enough, but we'll see if I can be with you. Have fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. Bye. Talk to you later. All right, Brad. Now we can talk about anything we want to talk about.
I gotta feed this little one lunch. So
there you go.
She was having a meltdown earlier, so I'm gonna run off. But we'll see you next week, and feel free to text or call or whatever in the meantime.
Yep. Sounds good. See you later.
All right. See you.
Bye. I'm going to do one more thing quickly here. There's a couple of things that I want to bring up. have to do with Final Cut Pro. As we announced earlier, Final Cut Pro has been updated to 10.4.3 today in time for its birthday. Also, there's a new Final Cut Pro 10.4 manual that just came out. This is a really, really good manual. It's very, very picked. It has a lot of graphics. That's one of the reasons that I really like it. Graphics. It shows you out. You can find that at Ding Music, DING music.com. And the other thing is Peach Pit just came out with the Final Cut Pro 10.4 Apple Pro Training Series Professional Post-Production. It's just coming out on June 29th. That's at peachpit.com. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Final Cut Pro Radio TV. We will see you. I'm going to do a pre-event stream next week. I'm not going to be streaming the actual event. I'm not going to be streaming Randy Ubelos. I'm not going to be streaming the movie itself, but things leading up to the event from about 5:30 Eastern, 6 o'clock Eastern, something like that. So I'll see you all next week in LA. First time I've been to LA. Thanks for tuning in.